And he's got about 15 minutes to give a gospel message. Man, he just nailed every one of them on the head. And then he said, I'm going to challenge you to do something in your faith. He said, anybody that just prayed this prayer, he said, I want you to stand up right now and say, I choose Jesus. And buddy, I about jumped out of my seat when half of that stadium stood up. It really moved me to see how many people gave their life and said, I choose Jesus. And only if we had more of that in America. I don't think revival is coming. I think revival is here. They talked about something else. It's probably going to blow your mind. In Washington, D.C., 3 blocks from the Capitol building, they're building a museum for the Bible. And it's going to have everything in it. I'm just wondering how it's going to make Obama feel. It's right up in his neighborhood. I think revival's here. But as we look at America and USA, it's broken. Every piece of it's broken. And that's a whole different sermon. I want to look at something else that's a little more personal this morning that kind of goes along with last night. And that's a broken soul. See, the problem is today in this world, the modernized church is giving a message that so many Christians are hearing, and then they're taking it out, and they think it's the right message. And that message they're telling them is it's not going to be that bad, and you're going to be okay. Actually, I lied to you. Let's start in Romans chapter 5. But they're giving that message, and that's why it's on us to put the right message out there. They're saying it's not going to be that bad, and you're going to be okay. Romans chapter 5, in verse 12, says, Wherefore, as by one man's sin entered into the world, and death by sin, and so death passed upon all men, for all that have sinned. Like a bad strand of the flu, Adam and Eve with their disobedience to God contagiously infected us all with a terminal case of sin. It's not something you can get out of. It's not something that's just going to disappear. We're all sinners. You mark it down, I'm a sinner, I'll tell you that first. And if you say you're not a sinner, well, there'll be an invitation later. Then when you go to Romans 3:23 and you put that together with that, for all have fallen short, come short to the glory of God. We're all lawbreakers. When the Bible says do, we don't. When it says don't, we do. Then when you marry that with Hebrews 9:27, for it says, for a man is appointed to die, then the judgment, we're all going to die. Amen. We're all going to stand, and we're all going to be in that judgment. Amen. And it's just a tragedy that there's so many churches, there's so many evangelists on TV giving that wrong message. Giving the message, telling sin-sick sinners, it's not going to be that bad, and you're going to be okay. Well, I got a different message this morning. If you don't fix your broken soul, it's going to be really bad, and you're not going to be okay. That's right. If you have a broken soul this morning, I'm going to tell you how to fix it. A lot of people don't really think, I'm not standing up here preaching to you. God's preaching to you. But He's preaching to me before He preaches to you. I'm just the messenger.
That's right.
So if I make you mad, I'm not sorry. But this is the message that God's given me to preach. So how do we know it's not going to be okay if you have a broken soul? As Tony Noah was talking about last night, we got this. A lot of people have the blurred vision of God. A lot of people are given that wrong vision of God, that God is a bad God. God is a mean God because God sends people to hell. God doesn't send one person to hell. We choose to crawl to hell over His dead but resurrected body.
That's right.
He's a loving God, but He is also a just God. He doesn't send us to hell. He makes the way out of hell. So we're going to look at Luke chapter 16, and we're going to start in verse 19. We're going to take a look at the book and see how we know it's not going to be okay. As you go through these couple books of Luke, as Kenny preached out of chapter 15 on the prodigal son last Sunday, you go through and it's just a bunch of parables in a row. And then in verses 1 through 18 in chapter 16, you have the unrighteous steward. And then you come, and I did my studies, I watched my videos, got my commentaries about theological, I can't even say that word. That was trying with me, he ain't going to. Everybody says that this is a parable, but if you look at it, it carries something that parabolistic language doesn't carry. It carries a name, and it carries more of a meaning. And when Jesus is speaking here, we're going to start reading in verse 19. This is what happens when someone does not deal with their broken soul. Chapter 16, verse 19. There was a certain rich man which was clothed in purple and fine linen, and fared sumptuously every day. So he had everything he wanted. He had it all. And there was a certain beggar named Lazarus, which was laid at his gate full of sores, and desiring to be fed with the crumbs which fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, the dogs came and licked his sores. And it came to pass that the beggar died, and he was carried off by angels into Abraham's bosom. The rich man also died, and he was buried. Stop there for a second. There's always a lot of confusion right there. The bosom is a Jewish figurative expression equivalent to paradise, and paradise is equivalent to heaven in the mindset of the people that are listening to this. Matter of fact, when you think about it, Jesus looked at a thief on a cross and said, "Today you will be with me in paradise." Lazarus did not go to heaven because he was poor. He didn't go to heaven because he had nothing here. If there's a poor man here that doesn't fix their broken soul, they're not going to heaven. Lazarus went to heaven because he trusted Jesus to provide his righteousness for him that enter in heaven that he could not give himself. Okay, we're going to keep reading. And in hell he lift up his eyes, being in torments, and seeth Abraham afar off, and Lazarus in his bosom. And he cried and said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me, and send Lazarus, that he may dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am tormented in this flame. So that right there just gives the first picture. Think about just sticking your finger in a drop of water and putting it on your tongue. You're not even going to feel anything if you do that. And that's what he's begging for here. And besides all this, between us and you, there is a great gulf fixed. Oh, I skipped one. But Abraham said, Son, remember that thou in this lifetime receivest thy good things, and likewise Lazarus evil things. But now he is comforted, and thou art tormented. And besides all this, between us and you, there is a great gulf fixed, so that they which would pass from hence to you cannot, neither can they pass to us that would come from thence. Then he said, I pray thee therefore, Father, that thou would ascend to my father's house. Okay, let me back up one real quick. Abraham said, there's no way. Once you're there, you're there. People can't pass from there to here, and nor from here to there. You're trapped.
That's right.
And Lazarus didn't go to hell just because he was, or not. This devil ain't gonna win this morning. The rich man didn't go to hell just because he was rich. Jesus said it certainly doesn't make it easy. He went to hell because he was a rebel. He was an unbeliever. He lived for the world and for the things that he wanted to, and not God.
That's right.
A sinner with a broken soul that's never dealt with, it's going to be really bad, and you're not going to be okay. We're going to look at 3 points, and we're going to go home before this snow hits. The rich man is forever. If you want to write these 3 down, it's like a little RT chart thing. You kind of remember it. He's going to remember the times. He is a recipient of torment. He is reachless and trapped. We look back, he begs Abraham. He begs him, get me out of here, send Lazarus. Then as you read on, he says, if you're not going to get me out of here, at least send Lazarus so my brothers won't have to go through this. He said, I don't want them here. And then Abraham said, they have Moses and the prophets. He said, if they don't listen to them, they're not going to listen to a dead man. They're not going to listen to a man that's already come back from the dead, because they weren't listening to Jesus. The prophets, he had come back from the dead. And he's forever trapped. As you read this, a lot of the people that write the commentaries, this is a haunting thought. Number one, they are forever haunted with the perpetual memory that they blew the chance. They're remembering the times. You're going to be able to remember the times. Remember, oh man, I had the chance in that church. I had a chance at that youth conference, at that adult conference. I had the chance and I blew it. To me, that would be hell enough to think about all the chances God laid out in front of you, and you just walked over them every time and you blew every chance.
That's right.
Then, as we read this, you just kind of picture it in my head. I don't know if I'm the only one. When I read the Bible, I like to put the story in my head. You know, the rich man's in his little fine golden carriage coming out with all his homies and his posse in the carriage with him. He's wearing the perfect clothes. He's got the ladies on each side of him fanning him with the big fan so he doesn't sweat, doesn't get warm. He's just going through, and they come through, and then he sees Lazarus. And he just looks at him, and he just keeps going. He says, I'm going to ignore you. You can't have none of this. Not what I have. And Lazarus is looking at him, and perhaps before Lazarus even said anything, Lazarus said, receive the bread of life. That's the message behind it. It wasn't just a poor man that wanted food. I feel like in the story that God uses this, we're Lazarus. And then you look out into it, and we're the ones that should be given the message to receive the bread of life.
That's right.
And then, the rich man just ignores him and says, keep going. And then Lazarus lays there, keeps laying there and says, what shall it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his soul? Then I kind of imagine that's when the rich man stopped and told his posse, go tear him up. Go beat him. And he runs at him, and the flies are buzzing, and the dogs are running off that were licking his sores, and they just beat him. And it's so that he dies. Then maybe that's not exactly how it happened, but that's how I picture it. Death happens to everyone. It's not something new. What is this? I'm going to die? What? We've known this forever. We've had family members that have died and went on before us. But one day you will die, and that will be the truth revealer. Remembering the times will be hell enough. Number 2, he is a recipient of tormenting. He says, the torment that he is in, he says, I'm tormented in this flame. One of the number one fear when you do the studies in the world is death. People fear death. They fear the way that they're going to die. And right there in the top 5, one of the number one fears is burning to death. And people are getting the wrong message that, it's not going to be that bad when I die. It's probably going to be okay. No, it won't. I tell you right now, no, it won't. And the second death, you are tormented in the flame. You are forever burning.
Amen, bro.
Yes, that's right.
A state of dying that never ends. People fear the way that they're going to die. A lot of people, when you do the study, a lot of people would die. Who would rather die really quick than slow, painful death? Pretty much everybody in here. And so, when you don't fix that broken soul, you are dying slowly, forever, for eternity. I can't even explain what the word eternity means. I can't wrap my mind around that. I've only been on this earth for 19 and a half years, and I feel like I'm 40-something years old. But this is never a popular message in the church, and people say, oh, he's crazy because he's talking about hell. If you want to call me crazy, you can go ahead and do it because I'm giving what God told me to give.
Amen.
I'm just a messenger, and I didn't come to please anybody. I didn't come to make anybody feel good. I didn't come so people would know my name. I came that people would know that God's name. I'm just the messenger. But I feel like everybody was coming. I was like, they're going to think of coming. I'm going to give some kind of lovey-dovey message. But God did not go that way. But when you think about it, it's still on the love that he reached down in the pit and offered to fix that broken soul.
Amen.
The truth is that the people in this world that don't fix the broken soul will die forever. Does that, as a Christian being saved, does that not hit you and make you want to get up and go? Because it's on us.
That's
It's
right.
on their eternity is on us.
You're right.
We can't just leave it up to them. Yes, they have to make the ultimate decision, but we can't just say, well, maybe somebody else will do it. I just think I'm going to stay in my bed today. It's on us to get up and go.
Amen.
It's our duty. It's our job. And when I seen that last night, 10 bands, probably 100 musicians and artists in each one overall combined together, it was on them to get up and go. And 20-something, 30-something years ago, it was on one guy's heart, and they were in a prayer meeting. And he said, God, I want you to use me to touch young people. And then you look a year later, and they have stadiums full of 20s of thousands of people giving their life to Christ every time they speak. But that just horrifies me. It's horrifying. It's not a fun thought to think about. People don't like to think about it. I would rather stand up here and tell you how Jesus loves you, because he does, instead of talking about this stuff. But when you read your Bible and you know and study your Bible, God talked more about hell than he ever did about heaven. He is a loving God, but he is also a just God. But he made the way of escape.
Amen.
And people say, why is the punishment so severe? And that really locked you in the closet to try to figure that out. But I was actually watching one of Tony Nolan's sermons, and he described it. The punishment is so severe because the offense is so severe. They have fallen short of the glory. Romans 3:23 or 6:23. They have fallen short to the glory. They have fallen short. They're living for the glory of themselves.
Amen.
A lot of times, we can be honest with ourselves. We live for ourselves in this world. We live for the glory of our popularity or who's going to know our name in school, what we wear. what level we hit on a video game, how many friends we have, and the world is living for the glory of itself. And Revelations 20 says, for the people who live for the glory of themselves will be cast into the eternal lake of fire.
Amen.
One day, for it is, in Hebrews, for a man is to die, then the judgment. The judgment. The judgment. We will all stand,
Amen.
and we will all... But there's the way out of that judgment. And that's... I'm having a hard time explaining it right now. I'm kicking Satan in the face.
Bless him.
But that's the way out of the judgment. But I know that it's going to be okay, because when I stand before the judgment, my broken soul has been mended. And God's going to say, welcome home.
That's right.
But on the other hand, it's destroying my heart that I know people in my own family, my own friends, my own life that will stand, and that soul's broken, and apart from me, you workers of iniquity. I never knew you. And if that's you this morning,
That's right.
God will mend that soul right here.
That's right.
I still remember the day. It was the day before my 15th birthday, September 9th. I was a freshman in high school. I had been living for the glory of myself. I cared what other people thought about me. I care right now. I don't care what you think about me. I cared what other people were thinking about me. I cared who liked me and who didn't like me. And I was sitting in that back row when Kenny preached a sermon similar to this one. And I did not walk to this altar. I floated to this altar.
Amen.
And I remember right here, God mended that broken soul.
Yes.
And He can do the same for you today. Number 3, last point. Stay awake. We're almost done. You're reachless and trapped. There is no way out. A lot of people say, and I think this is what the rich man was thinking, I just dig my way out of hell. I just give me some homies and we'll climb our way out of hell. It's not going to work that way. You are forever tormented in the flame, and you are trapped, begging for water, begging for someone to come and mend that broken soul. And Abraham says, you cannot pass from here to there, from here to you. He said, we're not coming to you. When we're in heaven, we're not going to look down on the people who's in hell, but I kind of have a feeling that they're going to look up and they're haunted with that perpetual memory that I had the chance and I blew it. I had the chance and I let the devil get a hold of me, and I ignored the altar call. I ignored the invitation, and I went home. I'm going to read on to finish this chapter out if you want to read with me. Then the rich man speaking to Abraham, as Jesus tells the story, then he said, I pray thee therefore, Father, that thou wouldest send him to my father's house, for I have 5 brethren, and that he may testify unto them, lest they also come into this place of torment. Abraham saith unto him, they have Moses and the prophets, let them hear them. And he said, Nay, Father Abraham, but if one went up unto them from the dead, they will repent. And he said unto him, If they not hear Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded, though one rose from the dead.
Amen.
And when you think about that, when you break the verses down, how powerful that is, Abraham's saying, one rose from the dead and you didn't listen. So what makes you think your brother's going to listen?
Amen.
You have Moses and the prophets. This world has the prophets. We're prophets. We're all preachers. I'm not just a preacher. I don't even know what I'm saying up here half the time. God's speaking through me. I'm letting Him have the reins. But I'm going to read the full verse in Hebrews. If you want to mark it, I think it is 9:27. And as it is appointed unto men once to die, but after this, the judgment. You know, I don't know if Jesus is coming back now, before I walk out these church doors, or in 1,000 years. But I can tell you that He's coming back someday.
Amen.
And that's why it's on us to get up and go. Maybe you don't, maybe that mended soul's already broken. Maybe the stitches are just starting to rip and you need to fix it this morning. Maybe it's never been stitched up and it's never been put back together. Maybe you want to know how to get up and go. Because one day, Tim said this a couple years back, and I will always remember it. What if one day the person God told you to go in the store and talk to, and you did it? You got their face in your head forever. You remember them. And then one day we stand at Judgment Day, and they're in line before you. And you recognize them. You know, there will be no pain or sorrows in heaven, but I kind of thought this will be able to touch you. They're standing in front of you, and then God says, Depart from me, you worker of iniquity, I never knew you. And you're standing there thinking, that was my job. That was my job. See, it is all God's plan, but we're the tools. You can't build a house without tools.
That's right.
And God says we're the temple. Maybe the insides this morning are just Maybe they just look nasty. Maybe they're broken. Maybe you've been living for the glory of yourself. I'm going to close here in just a second, but I have one more thing I want to share. You know, in this world we have 911. We all know what that is. You can call 911 and you can get out of whatever situation you're in, they're going to rescue you. You can be stranded in the middle of an ocean, they're going to fly a helicopter and get you out. But this is what Abraham is saying when he says that you cannot pass from here to there. Let me go back to it. When he's saying you cannot pass from here to there, when he says you're reachless and trapped, here's what Abraham's saying: there is no 911 in hell.
Amen.
Think about that for a second.
Amen.
You can't just pull out your handy-dandy cell phone and call 911 up, call your posse out, they're going to get me out of here. He said no. He said you're reachless and trapped. I'm just trying to get that point across to you. Those 3 points again. You will remember the times, you're a recipient of torment, and you're reachless and trapped. If you get a song. Maybe that soul hasn't been mended that's broken today. Maybe you've been living for the glory of yourself and the glory of the world and what others think of you, care what others think about you. Maybe you just need to have it restitched. Maybe you've walked away. I'll tell you, last night at that conference, God really relit the fire inside of me. Maybe you just need that. Whatever it is, He'll fix that today. If we'll all stand.